Welcome back. This is Arise News. You're watching the morning show with me, Biola Labi. Notore Chemical Industries PLC was on Thursday listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, boosting the market capitalization by 100.75 billion through its listing of 1.612 billion ordinary shares at 62.50 naira per share. Arise News was there to cover the event. Let's take a quick look.
The ringing of the gong may signify the closing of the market at the Nigerian Stock Exchange, but this time it heralds the arrival of Notore Chemical Industries PLC. The emergence of Notore is a culmination of a rigorous period of assessment and meeting the guidelines and conditions set by the Nigerian capital market for it to be an active player in the sector. August 2nd, 2018 will be remembered for Notore's listing by introduction on the Nigerian Stock Exchange.
We believe that increased participation of indigenous companies in the capital market will increase investors' confidence, both local and international, and entrench good corporate governance, transparency, and sustainability in the sector.
Our objective is to grow and continue to grow this business. The opportunities are there. We're in a decent space. We have the right tools and we have a good competitive advantage.
Notore's leadership gave reasons for its listing on the NSE, some of which include support to the Nigerian effort to deepen capital market, improve liquidity of the company's shares, increase the capital to fund the company's future growth initiatives, among others.
I think the IPO will take place, our estimate is that it will take place within a year. But the key thing, first of all, for us to do is to actually properly estimate, the value of our new project, and that will then inform us basically on how much we will be coming to the market to raise. Our strategy is very simple. From our existing plant right now, because that's what we have, is to focus on optimizing production, doing well with our cost. Our cost structure is still very good, but all we need to do is just increase production. We have secured gas. Okay, we do the turnaround maintenance, and then we should go to at least 95% to 100% of our design capacity.
It is said Notore's strength lies in its ability to diversify its revenues due to a favorable location within a gas hub and access to a jetty in the Niger Delta. This guarantees easy export of products manufactured within its facility.
Yeah, we're still doing right now the preliminary studies of that. Then we'll proceed with the early works, and then do a front-end engineering and design. When we do the FEED, it will then be able to tell us exactly what it will cost to build that new plant.
Notore is the primary provider of fertilizer to the federal government's Anchors Borrowers program. It also hinges its effort in encouraging self-reliance in the production of food and agricultural products and improving farmers' yields. Since a takeover from NAFCON, Notore's operations includes manufacturing of urea on a commercial basis, gas supply and finance, among others.
Thank you and welcome to the morning show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Congratulations on your listing. We saw you there sort of talking to lots of reporters. It's been a flurry of activities, I'm sure, leading up to the listing and now. What are some of the things that you were happy happened around this listing and the fact that you've done it now, and now what are your next steps with this listing?
Well, I think it's a dream come true eventually. Being able to take a company and build it from the very beginning. If you recall, when we acquired the assets of the old NAFCON, it was acquired under a liquidation exercise. Where we just bought the assets. So there were 0 employees, there was nobody. We just bought the plant.
Sorry, just for people at home, can you tell us about NAFCON and sort of that process?
Yeah, NAFCON was a fertilizer plant that was built by the federal government in the mid-80s, ran for about a year. Ran for about 9 years, and then went under. And then after that, for about 9 years, it was moribund. Nothing. So it was just an old plant, not even mothballed properly, left to the elements, and it was terrible to look at. And people actually wondered if that plant could really ever produce fertilizers again.
Wow.
When we acquired it, we had no personnel, so we had to build from the scratch. People's systems, structure, skills, and build it block by block, brick by brick, until we finally built a company today. So it's been a long road, having to build a company from scratch. I think this is what you call a true startup, and to eventually see that company eventually build value over time, and then eventually list on an exchange. That was a dream come true for me.
Oh, congratulations. I'm
Thank you very
happy to
much.
hear that. When you look at the journey, and 2 days ago during your listing, one of the things that came clear between your chairman and you was, number one, that this is going to help the company for its growth plans and obviously provide more liquidity. You're going to go to the market at some point again. The second thing is also from you said this will help boost the visibility and credibility of the company. In what ways do you see that happening? I mean, now you're listed. I mean, tell us how you hope this will boost the visibility and credibility of the company.
Well, first of all, while being a private company, we had diversified shareholder base, from investors from all over the world, institutional investors. So we already had systems and structures in place that actually prepared us for when we will eventually list the business. But again, what we've now done is we've now properly institutionalized the business, which is key, which also brings a lot of transparency and visibility into the company. We're actually also showing and exposing the company to the world now, basically to see and understand the growth story and the way we're going to actually go from where we are today to sometime in the future. So Notore is a real growth story, and that's where it is. There will be an increase in capital appreciation over time as we clearly continue to expand the business.
One of the things also from the CEO of the NSE was he was very excited about the development that this means and sort of almost what this means for an agro-allied company in Nigeria. As a leader in that space, do you see other people coming along, or do you see that you're so far ahead that what other agro-allied companies do you see in your space that also can sort of do some catch-up and also be listed in the future?
Well, first of all, we started off as being the only urea fertilizer plant in sub-Saharan Africa. Today, there's additional capacity in the market, and then new plants going to come. Of course, the barrier to enter is very high because it's a very capital-intensive project, but we see ourselves having about 2 to 3 fertilizer plants here. The importance of this as well, too, is how this will affect and boost the agricultural sector. Notore has been very strategically involved in growing that sector. We just don't produce fertilizers and distribute at the factory gate. We have closed channels that take our fertilizers all the way from the factory gate to the farm gates, reaching over 14 million farming families across the country. So what we want to see happen is we want to see farmers' yields substantially increase over time and see Nigeria ultimately not only just feeding itself, because like I always say, no country can actually be a great country if it's incapable of feeding itself. But we need to also see Nigeria ultimately become a net exporter of food and cash crops.
One of the things you mentioned is that it's capital intensive. So it's a capital intensive business to start. How did Notore start in face of this capital and in face of how difficult it is to raise capital globally, not just in Nigeria?
Well, we started pretty well in the sense that we were able to syndicate over $222 million from about 7 commercial banks in Nigeria. That was the basis of how we were able to start the business. Then, of course, we went through an extensive rehabilitation exercise and ultimately had 1 or 2 other rounds of fundraising through institutional shareholders, like I said, from the very beginning. And then we've now been able to build a business right from scratch to today being a very successful business and a successful opportunity in the marketplace.
When you look at your early conversations with the 7 banks that you were working with, were they able to see the opportunity immediately, or were they just sort of saying, we believe in you as an entrepreneur? Like, how did that early conversations go, and was the vision Did everyone buy into the vision right away?
Yes, I think that's where, and that's the successful part of the story. I mean, of course, the banks, first of all, marveled if it was possible to actually rehabilitate the plant to the way it already was, the state it was in. But we were able to actually show that it could be done. Okay, we had technical reports to show that we could actually bring that plant back to life. And then the most important factor is this: Nigeria at that time had now become a net exporter of fertilizers. So the opportunity was huge. And we said, look, this is an opportunity. This is going to be a growth story. This is something that will impact the agricultural space. And the banks bought into that whole philosophy. And they've stood by us all this time until we have now reached the final part of the road, which is taking the company to the market. Now it is to stand by us and support the growth strategy of the business.
So your success is their success?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you mentioned that you are the only urea fertilizer plant in sub-Saharan Africa. Is that, I mean, is that normal for this parts of the world, for there only to be, I mean, not to be other ones? I mean...
Up till 2015, we were the only one. Now you have Indorama, and you have another fertilizer plant that will be built and commissioned probably over the next 12 months. So there will be 3 companies producing fertilizers out of Nigeria.
But with the size of the continent, isn't that a little... Is that I mean, we don't know I don't know the tonnage of fertilizer that is needed on a regular basis across the continent, but is that normal for a continent of this size to have only one? I mean, just sort of going back to just when you were the only one, was that normal, or was that sort of also where you saw the big opportunity?
Well, we saw the big opportunity there. You have a few plants. I'm talking about sub-Saharan Africa,
yes.
So you do have a few plants in Egypt,
yes.
you know. But outside that, there's none. I mean, there's one being built in Gabon. Wow. But I think it's because of the capital intensity of the investment. Okay. So that's probably one. Secondly, you're going to also have the natural resources, the feedstock for fertilizer plants. Gas, you know, is 95% of your feedstock, actually, pretty much almost 100%. So that's what raises the barrier to enter. And these were projects that usually were done in the past by governments, and now they're private sector initiatives to actually build fertilizer plants.
Fantastic. One of the things I was reading about was that you're now exporting fertilizer. Where are you exporting fertilizer to, and how did that, I mean, was that always your plan, was to be able to produce enough that you can export? Yeah,
the plan is always to make sure that you have and you can export fertilizers. But what you also want to do is you want to make sure that you can provide all the required fertilizers in Nigeria, West Africa, the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, and the excess then export to other parts of the world. I think it's important to say that the opportunity is huge here. I mean, Nigeria still uses, or should I say sub-Saharan Africa still uses, the lowest fertilizer consumption or utilization per hectare. We're less than 10% kilograms per hectare, when the global requirement, or should I say what is best practice, you're about 200 kilograms per hectare. So there's a huge latent market that exists here. But for us, our strategy is push as much fertilizers into the country, improve the yields of farmers, work with farmers to achieve that objective, and then export whatever is excess or what is not utilized during the off-farming seasons.
And I mean, in talking about the opportunity in Nigeria and talking about the latent opportunity that still exists, what is your general economic outlook on Nigeria, especially when it comes to agriculture?
I think agriculture, Nigeria, first of all, is very, very, has the biggest opportunity today to increase and grow the agricultural sector. I think the agricultural sector should become the largest contributor to the GDP of Nigeria. So again, when you look at Nigeria, 900,000 square kilometers, 3/4 of that mass, or should I say that land mass, is arable land. Okay, we should be using all of this land to actually produce crop, either food crops or cash crops. And I think that the government initiatives now is actually pushing and pointing in that direction. Agriculture needs to be the mainstay of the country. It should be the biggest employer. It is currently the biggest employer of people. But for us, our objective is to ensure that farmers can operate at an optimal level that actually creates wealth to the farmers. That's what we need to actually work on right now.
Fantastic. I'm going to pick up on that optimal level after this break. We're going to take a quick break. On the morning, you're still watching the morning show with me, Biola Labi, and when I come back, I'll be speaking more to the CEO of Notore Industries. Welcome back. This is Arise News. You're watching the morning show with me, Biola Labi. Onajite Okoloko, the CEO of Notore Chemical Industries, is still with me here in the studio. Once again, thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much.
I wanted us to talk more about the impact that you're having on farmers on a day-to-day basis. There are 14 million, according to their 14 million farming households in Nigeria. How is the accessibility to fertilizer changing the lives of farmers and actually our lives as Nigerians today?
Okay, I mean, there are more than 14 million farming families. Notore's structure and strategy reaches 14 million farming
reaches 14
families.
million, sorry. Thank you for the correction.
Exactly. And it's very important for us because we just don't see ourselves as producers of fertilizers. We see ourselves as trying to impact the entire agricultural value chain. And how do we do that? How do we get farmers to improve their yields? It's by teaching them how to use the right kind of fertilizers for the right type of crops, and also using that in conjunction with improved seed. So we take a bundle of best practice to the farmers. Very important. You know, Notore has today over 6,000 demonstration farms across the country, which is what I mean by demonstration farms. The plots, less than 1/8 of a hectare of land in the middle of the farming communities where the farmers are there, you know, and the farms are all around us. Okay. The farmer uses their traditional practice in their farms, and on the Notore demonstration plots, we use Notore best practice. Improve seed, fertilizers, tell them how to apply the fertilizers, and then within a 3-month cycle, when you have the crop harvest, they can compare the yields themselves. And they see that they're probably getting 10 bags of maize on their traditional practice, and on Notore's demonstration farms, they're getting 100 bags of maize.
Oh, wow.
And then they realize that it takes them no more than 6 bags of maize in input cost to go from 10 bags to 100. So that's a gain of 86 bags of maize.
Wow.
So the farmer then realizes that, you know what, we really don't need subsidies. What we need is reasonably priced fertilizers and inputs to be available at the right time, which is right before the planting season, you know, the right quality and the right measurements. So that's what Notore has done. And then we have what we call our village promoters, which is Notore's private sector extensive workers. Notore has the largest private sector extension workers in the country.
You have to explain that to us. Okay. What does that mean?
Yeah. What we basically do is not only do we have our sales team that is responsible for working with our distributors nationwide, about 90 distributors nationwide.
Okay.
Okay. And 3,000 retailers that sit below the distributors.
And those distribution networks, were they already existing through NAFCON, or you built that whole distribution network?
We built the entire channel.
Wow.
We focused very much at the very beginning in building these channels. And these channels are so strong that they get all the way to the farm gate. And that's why, and we control our movement of our products through these very tight channels. That's why the quality of Notore fertilizer is guaranteed. Farmers love it. So we always say, we no longer sell a commodity, because that's what fertilizer is. Sure. We actually sell a consumer product, which carries the brand with it. So when the farmer goes into the market, he's looking for Notore fertilizer, you know. And, you know, of course, the farmer is not pretty educated, so there's little or no discretion when they give instructions to their child to say, go get fertilizers. They say, go get Kakin Soldier, which is the fertilizer that wears the military uniform.
Okay,
That's the color of the Notore. That's the Notore color. But what I'm saying beyond that is that, so we have that network of the sales team that gets the products out into the market. Then we have the agricultural services team, which works with what we call our village promoters. These are agricultural extension services people. They work in training the farmers on best practice across the country using demonstration plots to show the example. So that creates the pull effect for our product. When the farmer sees his yields going up, they go from the 1 kilogram bag to the 50 kilogram bag. And then all of a sudden, that's how we move our products into the market. We push with the sales team and we pull with the agricultural services team.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So when you look at the future of farming in Nigeria and you look at subsistence farming versus industrialized farming, what do you see? How do you see that trajectory? What do you see happening in that space?
Well, I think, both of them will work in tandem. What's important, first of all, is to take, because over 40% of our labor force in Nigeria, is in the agricultural sector. So the most important thing is, and the average farmer here is farming on 1 to 2 hectares of land, which is no different from the model in India or in Pakistan. But the yields there are so high because the farmers are using the right type of fertilizers and the right quantity of fertilizers. If we look at Southeast Asia and compare it to Sub-Saharan Africa, pre the 1970s, we had the same fertilizer utilization profile, we had the same crop output profile, until a gentleman who won the Nobel Prize called Norman Bullock, who is known as the father of the Asian Green Revolution, was able to teach the farmers, the local farmers, basically saying, while fertilizers is the fuel, improved seed is a catalyst to a green revolution. And once the farmers used the combination of those, their yields went up tenfold, and that was the inflection point. So when you compare Nigeria today with a country like Pakistan, similar mass in terms of land. Nigeria is about 900,000 square kilometers. Pakistan is about 950. Nigeria has approximately 180 to 200 million people. Same population.
Yes, very similar.
Nigeria has 3 times more arable land. 3 times more arable land that Pakistan has. But the average Nigerian fertilizer consumption today is less than 1.5 million tons per annum.
Wow.
In Pakistan, they're using 10 million tons of fertilizers per annum. They're using, the average is about 150 kilograms per hectare. In Nigeria, we're using about 10 kilograms per hectare. And that's the difference. Okay. And that's why today, absolutely. Yeah. And today, look at the output. Pakistan produces over 10 million tons of wheat per annum. So
there's huge opportunities and room for growth.
Yes, what we need to do is commercialize the mindset of the traditional farmer, so that he's not producing half a metric ton of, say, rice per annum. He's producing 5 metric tons, per hectare. So that's on the local farmer side, and that will be what will create the green revolution. The commercial farmers as well too, and that's what Notore specializes in doing, is providing for the commercial farmers, for the first time, specialized fertilizer, specification for specific crop types.
So give me an example of what that means.
Basically, we worked with the Cocoa Research Institute of Nigeria to produce a cassava blend
of fertilizer.
So what this does is, different crops use different quantities of fertilizers and, should I say, different compounds in the fertilizer, both macro and micronutrients. You make a cassava blend, so you make a blend of fertilizers that's specifically used for cassava. That will improve the yields in the cassava farming industry. We're also working on we also were involved in making a cocoa blend, and what's an NPK cocoa blend for cocoa farmers. Because you can't use the same fertilizers that you use for maize for cocoa.
So you're doing quite a bit of investment in research and development.
Yes, we are.
So tell me also, I know you're also doing seeds.
Yes.
So tell us about that as well and that process.
We have a seed subsidiary that we have commercialized some varieties that have been developed by...
Was that something also like an existing asset or something that you've just...
we created that from scratch. And the seeds business, basically what is important we realize is that the average farmer in Nigeria uses farm-safe seed. What that basically means is that he looks across his farm and then decides what part of the farm were the crops best in the last year. And he saves the seeds from that particular area and uses it for the next planting season. That's not what you need. You need hybrid seed, that are actually developed in such a manner that they're drought resistant, they're pest resistant, and they respond positively to the impact of the use of fertilizers. That's how you get the miracle yields. So we started developing through our subsidiary, the seeds department, the seeds company. We actually commercialized some rice and maize seed, and we use the channels in taking that to the market. It's still difficult to convince farmers to use improved seed, but they're beginning to see now the impact of that.
So with something like that, where you have the improved seeds and you have the demonstration farms, is that another way of converting farmers? And how effective has that been?
It was very effective. We're seeing our average farmers in specific areas, their yields going up significantly. And again, we're creating a lot of jobs, because if you look at the agricultural services team working with our village promoters, like we call them, we train the extension services workers, and the extension services workers train the farmers, and then sell small packs of fertilizers. So we've seen that the yields are going up with the farmers significantly. There are impact stories that have been done by Notore across the country, and that's very, very important. But what we must do as a country, after you improve these yields from farmers, is to fix the broken value chains, the agricultural, because it's actually broken.
Yes.
We still have today in Nigeria, which is the same characteristic of the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, the highest post-harvest losses in the world. So the post-harvest losses here as much as 50%. So when you have a local farmer who is not getting as much of, is not optimizing his yields, and then at the same time loses 50% of his output because he can't get it to the market, then we do have a problem.
So that's extremely concerning. So as someone like you, you are a champion of this African Green Revolution, you know the situation with post-harvest losses. How are you interacting with the government, or engaging the government, or advocating from an infrastructure perspective to be able to start to decrease this? What needs to be done? Because at the end of the day, you're championing on one side, you have all these great results, but we still have this huge post-harvest losses. It starts to become a no-win situation.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to do, first of all, is to be able to coordinate the farmers into communities, farming communities. That's one. And then create and have a way of getting the output into structured markets. That's very important. If you see what part of one subsidiary that Notore now has, which we're still incubating, is the Notore Foods subsidiary. And what that subsidiary is supposed to do in the long run is to be able to, when the yields of the farmers increase, is to be able to guarantee the offtake of specific types of crop. Okay, we'll probably look at starting with rice and maize, and then channel that back into the market in an organized manner, allowing the farmers participate in some of those profits. Fixing those value chains is very important.
So I keep on hearing you.
Yes.
So you started with fertilizer, then you incubated seeds, then you're incubating
The food subsidiary.
And then you also have gas. So power. So all these things, were they always part of the plan, or just the need just kept on? In order to be efficient in what you were doing, you have to incubate all these new businesses.
Well, for us, what was important, first of all, was to build an agricultural business, or support the agricultural sector through the availability of good quality fertilizers. That is still the core business. But when we bought the asset came with significant amount of other facilities. And then, of course, in Nigeria, to run a fertilizer plant like this, you also have to have a utilities division that will generate power for the fertilizer plant. So we have over 50 megawatts of power generating capacity, of which we only use about 8 megawatts. So we then got an independent power license from the government. And then, so that's the start of the power business. We now also have our facilities, being designated a free zone by the oil and gas free zone authorities. So we're developers of the free zone. We have 2 kilometers of waterfront. We have gas coming to the facilities through a related company. So we have now secured our raw material, which is very, very crucial for us. And now, with the facilities, there's gas available there, there's power available there. So we're now opening up the facilities under the Notore Industrial City to create an industrial chemical city, or should I say, a gas hub for the chemical industry.
Wow. So people at home are watching you, they're listening to this. Notore is a success story, it's a great success story. And people are going to say, you know, he's highly educated, he's done this before. Can you just tell us a little bit about how this journey was bumpy, just some of the bumps that you encountered in the road? I know we don't have enough time for it, but sometimes it always looks that it was just, everything was smooth sailing. And I think it's just sometimes good to just share a couple of bumps in the road with people.
Well, I mean, there are always going to be bumps in every road. I mean, there's a success story, always doesn't come easy. I mean, one of our biggest challenges we had in building this business after, starting off pretty well was the availability of gas. All right, we couldn't guarantee the supply of gas for 3 years, 2013, 14, and part of 2015. And that's why we had to find a solution that was more within your control. All right, so those are challenges that we've had in the business. So today we've now opened up the business to the world to watch us grow and support the growth strategy and have the world become shareholders in Notore. It's a good story.
And you want, local shareholders, Nigerians to be part of this journey, and people can do that on the open market now.
Absolutely.
As a leader, one of the things that is important from a leader perspective is, of course, finding the right people and also growing that team and making sure people all buy into the vision. As leaders out there that are sort of struggling with their companies, they're on this entrepreneurship journey, some of them in agro, what advice do you have for people that are trying to build a team and people to believe in a vision that maybe others might not be able to see?
Well, first of all, it's in the definition of what the role of a CEO is. And my own definition of a CEO is you have 3 functions. You're the chief business developer of your business, you're the chief HR officer of your business, and of course, you're the chief strategy officer of your business. Now, those are the 3 functions of a CEO. When I say chief HR officer of the businesses, your role is to go out around the world and continue to hunt for the right skills to bring into your business. But then again, it's not just having the right kind of people, but the people must also be able to work collectively. So that has to be part of the culture. You want a team spirit within your organization and not just champions, So that's your role. Find the right people that can come into your business. People is always what's important. So
not location,
CEOs,
location. People.
People. Your best asset in your organization are your people, right? So if you can find the right people to come in and work with you, that would be perfect. And of course, these people must also sit at the table, designing the objectives of the business and also the strategic roadmap that gets you to the final destination. There must be heavyweights in the business. There must be, it's not the story of the genius and 1,000 helpers, where everybody is there to help the CEO. No, they must work together collectively with the CEO to be able to grow the business. And they must see themselves as stakeholders in the company. That's how you grow a good business.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing some time with us today. We wish you all the best, and we hope Notore continues to be a Nigerian success story.
Thank you very
so
much
for being here. It's time now for another break, but when we come back, we'll be talking interior design with Osaru Alele. Don't go away.